This way. 50 seconds standby.
So far,
90 seconds. Standby. 90 seconds.
While the historic impact of the Freedom Charter is immeasurable,
we carry the rich and strange freedom from inside ourselves, the theme of South Africa.
The challenge now is to ensure that the demands of hundreds of thousands of South Africans who helped put the document together has not been taken. And Ivani Pillay in Cape Town, Soweto.
An additional credit for that feature goes to Ronald Pillay. Which brings us to today's Congress of the People, great gathering of names here this morning. And just to introduce our panel, I'm starting with Mr. Maxi Sulu, who joined us. And then to my left, I have the ANC Secretary General, Mr. Gwede Matashe. We have from the EFF National Chairperson, Mr. Abdullah. We have next to him the Parliamentary Chief of the Treasurer General of the IFE, the Honorable Mr. Naran Singh, and to his left is from the UDM Deputy Secretary General and MP, Mr. Abayoni. And we also have with us this morning Co-Deputy President Mr. Willie Matisha, and from the Democratic Alliance, Fountain MPL, and Provincial Chair Soli Simanga. You are all most welcome here today. Now, Mr. Sisulu, as Justice Albie Sachs was saying during that feature package, that most of the people who were here on that day have passed on. But if you think back, you were here as well, and the delegates of that Congress of the People who have since passed on, if they came back or were looking over us today, what do you think they would say about the state of South Africa?
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be here today. As Albie Sachs said, this is the Wire Museum. I'm also honored that there is a resemblance of myself in the Wire Museum. Because I was here as a child, as a member of Masuka Singha, the ANC. And what was memorable here at the time and many other youngsters was the mood of the people, the vibrancy, the spirit that we shall conquer, nothing will defeat us. We must be behind the band, the brass band of that fun, and we are all in our uniform, the ANC colors. And what was important was that all of us had one aim in mind, to make sure that the spirit and determination of our people shall never be killed. And as a youngster, we came to the square, my dad and my uncle were also in a car somewhere. And so they asked us to call some people. So we, in a sense, some messages to say there's somebody lucky to see the car. We can say who it was, put them to where the car was, and that's how we were able to communicate. We're also able to tell the leadership who was speaking and all those kind of things. The important thing was that as young people, we grew up knowing that nothing is going to defeat the struggle of our people for freedom. The importance also of the Freedom Charter was that it has found its way into our constitution today. So the Freedom Charter is alive today as it was when it was being put together by our people. It's there in our constitution, but also it is there in the struggle of our people for change. And the Freedom Charter says South Africa belongs to all, and it's a democratic country. And it also serves as an inspiration, not just to our own people, but Africa serves as an inspiration to many other people outside South Africa. The struggle against apartheid was a universal struggle because it united people across color, across race, across countries, because it symbolized the best in humanity. that is what we symbolize. That's the freedom charter symbolizes today. And the thing about the freedom charter is that after its adoption, days were 10, and people, 156 people, being charged to prison. Prison being you want to be a free person, that we shall go to jail. And the symbolism of the freedom charter will probably be there for those who were constipated, for those who continue to live in a democratic South Africa, and also we give this opportunity to remember those who went before us, which contributions to the struggle for democracy.
Now, one of the most famous lines of the Freedom Charter that is often repeated is that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. Some would say rather contentious line, that one, but does South Africa really belong to all who live in it? Socially, economically, and otherwise? Yes,
South Africa belongs to all who live in it. That sentence captures the environment within which the freedom charter was adopted. You must remember that it was the gathering of the people waiting for this case of the country to do want to take place. Therefore, it was an act of compliance and an act of fulfillment. But at the same time, there was a great degree of compliance because congresses that came to the Congress of the people were race-based organizations. The African National Congress, the Carib People's Congress, the Ordinary Congress, the American and the Congress of Democrats. And that was compliance, and that compliance was for survival. And today, South Africa belongs to all living. What we should do so is to implement the rest of the other clauses to integrate society. Integration of society is not like instant coffee where we just put powder and water and produce coffee. It is a social evolution of society. It will take its own time, and I will tell you that it is the next generation that will have no qualms and handovers about color, race, creed, sex. They will be equal because they are growing up in an environment where they understand the belonging to all living means that it should be integrated society.
Well, of course, we will contest the statement that says that any of the aspirations of the freedom charter have been realized. And I think as somebody said in the tweet, the key word is freedom in the freedom charter. And for some people, that might mean just political freedom. But for us, we say political freedom without economic freedom is meaningless. Now, if you look at the freedom charter, you will see that you just take a few clauses here. The people shall share the country's wealth. It's a no-brainer. Driving here, you can see just around you the squalor and the poverty. So the people are not sharing in the country's wealth. It says the land shall be shared among those who work it. That is not happening. The freedom charter says all shall be equal before the law. That is not happening. There shall be equal human rights, working security, those of learning and culture, there shall be housing security and comfort. None of that has been realized. The problem I think that we have in South Africa is that a document like the Freedom Charter is an aspirational document. So one can have a kind of mild interpretation of it and say it has been realized. But in reality,
So what are you saying? The ANC is taking a mild interpretation?
yes, it does, because there is room for a radical interpretation of the Freedom Charter, which the ruling party decided not to adopt. I'll give you an example. The so-called National Development Plan, which has been adopted by the ANC, is fundamentally diametrically opposed to the philosophy underpinning the Freedom Charter. So we can't be a party that says, I believe in the Freedom Charter at the same time I believe in the NDP. Section 25 of the Constitution is diametrically opposed to what is said here, that the land shall be shared. The Freedom Charter calls for nationalization of wealth. The ANC in 1969 said that if economic liberation does not happen, then that will not represent even a shadow of liberation. That's what the ANC said. And that is where we are. What we have does not even represent a shadow of liberation. Because if the world is still where it was when the Freedom Charter was drafted, and it is still like that here 21 years ago, then and really that's the only simple issue. It's either you think that the Freedom Charter was calling for voting in 5 years, or you're saying the Freedom Charter was calling for the transfer of land. The Freedom Charter uses a very strong word in the second sentence of the preamble. It says, I want people to be robbed of their land. Robbed means violent takeover. If you get robbed, it can't happen nicely. So until you reverse that robbery and restore the land to the people, you can't talk about freedom. It's surely the freedom that was anticipated in the word freedom there was not just about freedom.
Almost makes it seem as though we're looking at two different documents and two different stages of implementation right now from what the advocates say.
No, we are not looking at two different things, we're looking at the same thing. The difference is that for Comrade Ghani, the document should, on the 27th of April 1994, be achieved. And therefore, we should be saying now everything that we should do. So where was that coming from? We say the Freedom Charter was adopted in 1955. In 1994, there was a government of national unity where the focus was on reconciliation and nation building. Only in 1999, the actual building and working for the fulfillment of the Freedom Charter started being implemented in NS. And Ghani says, not unless we think that the Freedom Charter calls for voting for every 5 years. In the first clause, the Freedom Charter does call for voting. The right for people to be franchise, it calls for people to be elected as representatives, it calls for all that participate. If you read that clause, that is required. No, but where it is important is that it is that issue and other clauses. For example, the equality of rights. The equality of rights in law and in the Constitution are the same. The actual practice and the question of the effect of resources in exercising those rights and the degree of organization makes a difference. But in 1995, those people, many of the people majority had no right at all. But that right now is accrued to the people, and that is movement. And it's up to us together to ensure that those rights are accessible and are exercised.
Let me move on to Arun Singh first, to hear what the IFP's position is on this.
Yeah, firstly, second, good morning to your listeners. I think as the IFP, we certainly need to pay tribute to all those sung and unsung heroes who contributed to the struggle against apartheid. And ranking amongst them are those that gathered here at Cape Town. Now, one of the things that they said right at the end of the adoption of the Charter was, and I quote, "These freedoms we will fight for side by side throughout our lives until we have won our liberty." And indeed, in 1994, liberty was attained. Political emancipation for the people of South Africa. Economic emancipation still eludes us. And it doesn't come from us, it comes from those very listeners and people that we interviewed. Each one of them said that they were still living in squalor, they had serious concerns about how this government is conducting itself as we move forward. So it's not us saying this, it's the people out there that are still having challenges with the spirit and the implementation of the Freedom Charter. We certainly as a political party embrace and support the ideals of the Freedom Charter. But its relevance now in 2015 is something that we need to question. Moving forward, how much has been done in terms of implementing? And yes, I would understand that the SG of ANC would say you can't do these things overnight. We accept that. But is there a real intention to make sure that all the people shall be equal, that there shall be free education for everybody? There is a clause there that talks about mineral wealth. Is that going to be achievable? That all the people of South Africa shall share in the mineral wealth? What we believe needs to happen is that we need to come up with another people's charter now in 2015 that will address the concerns of people as we live today.
But Mr. Singh, is it about coming up with charters, periodically, if, as you are lamenting now, there's a problem with implementation, and also maybe, to distinguish between the relevance of the document and, the perhaps lack of implementation thereof?
Well, the document is extremely relevant because many of the clauses in the Freedom Charter have been embodied in our Constitution, and we all, subscribe to our Constitution, we respect our Constitution. But moving forward, having a charter is having people together. We need people from all walks of life, rich, poor, from the mine houses and from everywhere else, like happened in 1955, to come together and say, we've had this Freedom Charter. Do we need to relook at it? Do we need to have another policy document? Do we need to say there's something wrong and let us move forward together, not as political parties, but as people of this country in a forum which governments hopefully must initiate. And we go forward from here and say in 10 years' time, what progress have we made in implementing the spirit of whatever charter we about?
Well, you're listening to a special broadcast of the 60th anniversary of the signing of the Freedom Charter, coming to you from the Soweto Hotel and Conference Center in Kliptown. Right now it is 7:30. We're going to go to news with Economy. And upon returning, we shall continue. And remember, the lines are open. You can call us at 0891104208. SMS us on the number 34701. Twitter, Facebook, AM Live on SAFM or at Sakina Commando.
SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader.
Sondman Mara study in Marikana report and Charleston mass shooting victims buried. Good morning, my name is Iskona Lisa. Crown Partner Mara in Rustenburg says it's carefully studying the context of the Marikana Commission report before taking any action. The report was released by President Zuma last night. It found among others that London failed to create an enabling environment for negotiations with striking mine members during the strike containment trials. It also indicated the mine court's insistence that non-striking mine workers report to duty without creating a safety passage for them. A report that looks to be a legal course from that.
The company at the center of this investigation along me says it will respect the findings of the commission. It further says, since the shooting incident in 2012, it has improved safety measures and created a safe working environment, especially for my workers. The company CEO Ben Magara says, since the establishment of the commission, they have been cooperating, have been transparent and open to all press related to events that unfolded during and after the shooting. And Lucas Mutimedi reported in Marikana.
The report also recommended that police commissioner Leslie and Inspector Staff be investigated to investigate the executive and the President's sworn officer already guilty for the events which led to the death of the report striking miners. President Zuma has also mentioned that both Commissioner Pieka and former Northwest Provincial Commissioner Bishwan Bongo, who retired last night, are likely last month, are likely to stay.
I have written to the National Commission to inform of the recommendations contained in the Minister of Police will inform the former Northwest Police Commission on matters affecting public. Further updates on these matters will be provided in due course.
And in response to media queries, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa revealed some of the content of the report and he will do to provide his comments. The Deputy President wanted to make sure that the Planning Commission and the Assistant Commission to reach its conclusions. And in his reaction to the release of the report, the ANC said it's only revealed the truth around the tragic incident. It expressed the hope that the other case for the elimination of the CAD and CIMANIC is the government as an injustice and a betrayal of all South Africans. The IFP says clear police officers involved in the shooting should be suspended with immediate effect. EFF leader Julius Malema has questioned the report's finding that Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa should be absolved of all responsibility, saying the party will prosecute him. From other news across the continent, Lesotho's former army commander, Lieutenant General Abadan Gunahal, confirmed death following the shootout with other members of the army yesterday. The government has released a statement confirming the death. The incident occurred just outside the capital, Maseno. Two members of Mahal's family who were in the vehicle with him say members of the army stopped him. According to the family, the attackers shot Mahal and then took him away. He was later confirmed today. The Ministry of Defense has confirmed that the shooting happened during a sanctioned operation and says further details are expected today. Tabara and SAFM News, Massive. In our further afield, 2 of the 9 people who died in a racially motivated mass shooting in Charleston, US last week have been buried. Police officers stood guard as thousands of women celebrated the lives of Sharon Singleton and Echo Lance, who were killed by a white gunman at the Emmanuel African Methodist Church. Later today, President Barack Obama gave the eulogy at a service for living in Mississippi with the pastor at the church. To recap on the top story, London Captain Marlon Rustenberg said it's carefully studying the context of the Iconic Commission report before taking any action. For SAFM News, I'm Zakana Lisa.
Well, you're very sorry to do that from the south this morning. One is very congested on I-1 going in, backing up from Southgate all the way through the double-decker section. There's been a crash on the L59 already. Change traffic recovering slowly after that. Due from Cyclops Road, and a collision on the N3 at the northern exchange to the N2, so traffic still very slow out Alberton on the N12 driving east from the Orchard Road after the traffic. N1 between Ladies on here and Rotonia driving in from I'll back up to towards the area and Rotonia Road.
AM Live on SAFM 104.7.
And back to our special broadcast here from the Soweto Hotel and Conference Center in Cape Town as we celebrate the 60th anniversary of the signing of the Freedom Charter. Now we've heard from some of our panelists here this morning. We continue as we talk about the Freedom Charter 60 years on. And we'll move on to the UDM's Mr. Kwampa there to tell us what the UDM's view is about the Freedom Charter, the implications in 2015, and of course also how far you think we have come.
Well, thank you very much, President. Indeed, as the National Democratic Movement were elected to our struggle icons for the role they ensured that we, as a country, extricate ourselves from the comprehensive work of the apartheid regime, the president. And as a party, we feel that the Freedom Charter, to a large extent, most of its principles are still alive. Because they are reflected in our constitution. But there are problems insofar as the implementation of some of the principles of the Freedom Charter. As concrete values of the Senate and aspirations of That is true. But if you look at principles like digital, we only look at it procedurally, where people's voting and election that's more and political party choice. But we don't look at it subjectively sometimes to say that campaign programs are not to be daily basis. They should actually be undertaken by the leader of the people. They should become the private party. There are many instances where people actually make it clear to government that they don't really accept policy programs and actions and so on. But then the committed not because of that. We think that that on its own is a misinterpretation of that approach. The other issue which is very important is that even though some of the projects, of course, were aspirationally intended to improve the lives of the people in general, and intended to take a lot of the forward, but like, for example, if you talk about the nationalization of the rest of our region, we should actually take stock and find out as we are able to do that including the constraints that we operate in this country.
Do you think we are?
No, we're not in a position to do that.
Do you think we will be?
It's very unlikely. It's very unlikely for a number of reasons. But what I want to say, insofar as that is concerned, is that maybe we should move beyond this physical sanctity of the people chat. Say, we need to get to a point where the minds to start talking about amending the people chat. So that it speaks to life, it speaks life rather to some of the challenges that we face in country. So that it makes the way forward is to what kind of South Africa do we seek to become. Remember what is articulated in the people chat is the vision, the aspirations of the previous generation that we are in. Now, I think we're very supposed to also articulate the vision for the future, taking into account the environmental issues, a lot of contextual issues, so that the people take the time for. Thank you.
Let me go to Mr. William Adisha of COPE, and you, of course, your party, carries the name of that event.
Yes, good.
Mr. Adisha.
Hi, good morning. Good morning to you and to all listening. I wish to emphasize that yes, indeed, this is an extremely important day. And we go back and thank the 3,000 delegates who came together to involve the Freedom Charter. It was a sequel to that, of course, that the people of South Africa were able to come together and say that this is the route that we're going to take. I must emphasize that recently, one party has been emphasizing the Freedom Charter belongs to them, and that is wrong. Because, yes, and that's the thing, of course, that's extremely wrong. The Freedom Charter belongs to the people of South Africa, and I want to emphasize the 5 parties which were there, the Congress of the People. There's not only ANC, with the South African Indian Congress, South African Color Congress, etc. They came together and evolved this. And even before then, the people of South Africa throw out in various smaller meetings. And I want to quote the then president of the ANC, Oliver Tambo. To quote, he said that it was being compiled from thousands of written statements gathered at thousands of small meetings. The Freedom Charter was agreed to at that time by black opposition movements, not movement, which is ANC. Many movements. I want to emphasize that. Now, coming back to your position on the point that you're raising, but I think even before that, this must be emphasized. It belongs to all the people of South Africa, not one organization. Now, have we attained all the 10 points that appear in the Freedom Charter? I want to say no. The only one that we have been able to attain is the first one, where people can go and vote. But then it further goes on to talk about the people shall govern. But then are the people governing? No, they are not governing.
Why aren't the people governing?
They are being used as voting cattle.
But isn't that an indictment on the people? Because what you are essentially saying is that people have no agency. Because for the ANC then to be able to really use people in the way that you are suggesting is a serious indictment on us as South Africans, ordinary South Africans.
Exactly, that's the reality. The reality is, albeit people are taken to elections after every 5 years, instead of the people fully governing, they are not governing. And I will go on and give you examples as we go on with the interview. But then even apart from that, all the areas that the Freedom Charter puts there, the 10 points, show that we have not achieved anything. I mean, the issue, for example, of the housing, of economic development, the issue of land, etc., etc.
But what are you saying on that score, Mr. Madicha? Are you saying that there's been no movement on those issues, or are you saying the movement has not been sufficient?
There is no movement. One thing that we have is a lot of noise when people rise. We talk of unemployment rate, which is beyond 40%, for example, and you go to the Freedom Charter, the alternative, the antithesis is actually the case. You talk of land acquisition, people are trying to get land, but it is not feasible. How do you give people land without ensuring that they have resources to maintain that, for instance? There are very many things, and I want to therefore emphasize that we have a party that has taken over and has failed the people of South Africa because it has not implemented.
So the ANC is failing, not the people of South Africa are failing.
The ANC has failed and continues to fail to implement the Freedom Charter.
Mr. Timama from the DA, what's your view?
You know, I think we've actually even digressed in a whole lot of ways. And I can give you a whole lot of examples of how we've done that. As Mr. Madicha has said, look at unemployment rate that continues to soar in South Africa. Look at the quality of education that our children are subjected to. 21 years down the line, you still have learners who are sitting on bricks inside schools, or we have to share a classroom with cows. During the day, the cows have to be, chucked out, and then it becomes a classroom. And in the evening, those cows then become, comfortable in that area. Let's talk about the housing as an example. The Freedom Charter talks about people having houses and security and comfort. But we are now getting a report that we need to spend 52 billion rand to go and fix the mess that the government has done in the first instance, where houses have been built inadequately so, of bad quality, but we don't hear of anybody paying back that money. So, there's a whole lot of examples. I can give you another one, the e-talks as an example. More than 50% of the residents of Gauteng have said they don't want the system. But the ruling party has gone on and implemented the system, and it's actually right now threatening people to say you will pay. So, there's a whole lot of examples that I can go on in showing you how we've actually regressed. Let's take the issue of one of the 10 points that says that the people shall live in peace and friendship. And recently we've experienced a whole lot of attacks on our foreign nationals that are here in the country. And we need to start unpacking what is causing that. The fact that people have to fight over limited resources. People have to fight over jobs because the ruling party failed economic policies that have failed to create jobs, that has now seen a whole lot of people looking at limited resources instead of expanding
more people can get jobs. We are now seeing a situation where people are fighting over, limited resources that are there. And also the issue of equal rights. I mean, there are more people who are equal than others in South Africa. As a president, you can have had over 700 charges of corruption and whatever else. And there are people who are taken to court, who are taken to jail for legal things, and sometimes for political reasons. So that's why I'm saying it looks like we have actually gone a whole lot back than moving South Africa forward.
Speaking about equality, at your Congress at the beginning of last month, you spoke about equal opportunities.
Yes.
Now, how do you have a platform whereby South Africans, given our past, have the opportunity to start from an equal opportunity base?
Well, you see, the thing is, you need to work at. You need to build on that. It's not something as Mr. Mantasha rightfully said.
So you agree with him on that?
No, let me explain what I mean. It's not something that you just snap a finger that it's there. You get the basics right. You get the basics in education right. You get the basics in your economic policies right. So that you can create employment. So that the learners who are coming out of school will be more than welcomed into the environment. But as it stands right now, learners are coming out of school worse off because of their coming out and they're not even employable. Some of them are not even employable. So we need to then say, to get to a level where everybody is equal, we need to take care of the basics. And that's what we need to do. I mean, you're talking about, let me give you an example. We're talking about equality in sports. We're talking about having a child coming from the township being able to play rugby as a child who's coming from Waterloo, as an example. But then we start asking, what has the government done in the township to make sure that there is a stadium or there is a field that child will be able to practice in, that child in school is able to take that as one of the subjects of study as an example. That is not happening. So how do you then get somebody, or how do you expect then somebody to compete on an equal footing while at the grassroots level you haven't done the basics to make sure that child has a platform?
And I guess, the question then becomes, have we abdicated our responsibility if we talk about, this Freedom Charter? Because again, I'm trying to understand, does this Freedom Charter belong to the African National Congress, or does it belong to all South Africans? Because if it belongs to the African National Congress, then by all means, they are responsible for it. But if it belongs to all of us, does the logical conclusion then not dictate that we are all responsible for making sure that the ideals of this document are realized? I'm just asking, we're going to go to a spot break. When we come back, I'll take your responses and I'll go to the floor. I was going to analyze, I'm asking a question. So I'm coming back to that right after this break.
And we shall respond. And we shall respond. Never hijacked it.
This month and this one.
But hold on, you're not the first one.
Can we get a quick response? 2 minutes to react to what everybody has said. I know, this is not.
What's our time?
Oh, you will be dealt with one way or another. You can start with your stand by.
AM Live on SAFM 104.7.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. SAFM Live this morning. It is, of course, our special broadcast of the anniversary, the 60th anniversary of the adoption of the Freedom Charter. Mr. Max, sir, you haven't spoken in a minute. Let me start with you. And I'm going to give everybody a quick moment to respond to what has been said thus far.
Let's start with the mic. Hello. There you go. Thank you very much. I think maybe to begin at the beginning. 300 years of oppression and exploitation cannot be removed in simply, a decade or two. We have legacy in the past that we need to redress and address. And for me and many other people, the Freedom Charter continues to be a guide to action. It's not an answer to all the problems, it's a guide to action. It continues to represent the hopes and aspirations and commitment of our people. What it does do is to say these are the issues and we need to say collectively how do we address them.
And we hear that very often, you can't have the redress of 300 years of inequality and apartheid rule and all of the rest in a short space of time. But perhaps the question at this point is that how long will be needed?
Well, how long is a piece of string? Long for the short. I think it's forced to presume that nothing has happened. It is untrue. Which is why the electorate keeps on coming back to the ANC that they know as their liberator. What we need to do is to speed up all the actions that we have promised. Certainly there are promises that have been made and have not been kept. That's true. But the question is what needs to be done in order to address this situation? There have been programs in terms of health, education, but not enough. We need to speed it up. And it's a collective responsibility. It's not a responsibility of only the ANC sections of the population. It is our responsibility. Change will never happen on its own. No, change will never happen on its own. Change comes as a result of action. And we need to decide what kind of action we need to take in order to bring about the desired results.
I think everybody will agree with that. Mr. Matasha, here's a quick one from Baba Mtikulu in Belcom. He says, South Africa belongs to those who rule it. The people shall be governed.
The flip side of the same coin. Because you see, what I try to frustrate any debate about is that people don't read it. That's the most frustrating thing.
Yeah.
They take headlines and talk headlines and throw around snippets. Let me give you an example. I want to talk about all these things, land and rights. Because they are the most vulnerable clauses of the Freedom Charter. On the mineral rights below the surface of the soil, banks and monopoly industry, it says they shall be transferred to the ownership of the people. It doesn't say nothing about that. And they deliberately choose to forget that when the Mineral and Petroleum Development Act was promulgated in 2004, the ownership of mineral rights below the surface of the soil was transferred to the state on behalf of the soil. Now, that is deliberately done. And that's why, after that legislation was promulgated, people were operating mines had to apply for new order rights from the owner. They are paying royalties to the owner. The debate that is there is how to ensure that with that ownership, it was translating to benefiting communities visibly. Because sometimes when this clause is right, people argue that there will be everybody will have a mind. And that is vulgarization. But the rest of the matter is that once it is in there in the state, the responsibility of the state is redistribution. It must build schools, clinics, houses, and so forth. If you say nothing is happening in housing, when there are more than 3 million houses built, then it means that you can't see. You can't see and you can't see.
Comes back to my first question.
Yes.
Can we say 60 years on there that South Africa belongs, at least economically, to all who live in
Don't
it.
say 60 years later. The Freedom Charter was adopted under the apartheid regime. The only time it started to be implemented was after 1999 in August. That's my argument. Because when you take the years when the union was in exile, everybody underground running for cover from the apartheid regime to say, why have you not implemented for 60 years? You are disingenuous. Because under apartheid rule, the Freedom Charter could not be implemented. Okay. And that's why even in the question of land, people say nothing is happening. I don't think it's actually yesterday. And I looked into the audit that was conducted by land reform department. One, it says 79% belongs to the private sector, 21% to the public. Now, who is that 79? There's a large of saying, let's keep the racial content of that 79. Where that, because the 7% that is unaccounted for that audit is land in a bank, in two banks, the sky and the and if you put those together, you will be able to quantify the total that it is slow as it is. So work in progress is not nothing is happening.
Dalimpofu is shaking his head as is with his mouth. Not right now because we have to go to news at 8 o'clock. So Zikona is standing by. When we come back, I will take your questions.
No, why is it taking so long for you to even give title deeds? Why is it taking so long for you to even give title deeds? People are sitting without title deeds.
So SAFM does proportional representation.
Yes.
Yes. So that's it. Honorable member, your time is up.
Yes. Yes.
The people are really being even in SAFM.
Yeah. I'm rounding this up and then we're going
I have written to the National Commission to inform of the recommendation sustained in the Minister of Police will inform the former Northwest Police Commission on matters that are updates on these matters will be provided in due course.
Response to the queries and the is send the report and the request regarding comments. They depend on fully their one Only on the South African land of
I was estimating the beds that went to Sweden now, not the money, but the beds.
10 million?
Yeah. We get the beds back. That went to
They gave it to me.
Did we get the beds back at least? You know that there's no Mashaman bed there, so if you want Mashaman bed, it's evident. Deny everything. What's worked out?
Freedom Charter, and today we are celebrating the fact that it is 60 years old in Cape Town, Soweto, coming to you live from the Soweto Hotel and Conference Center here on Walter Sisulu Square. Now, Mr. Advocate Mpofu, you were gesticulating.
Yes.
Feverishly,
Yes. Well, I'm talking my head for various reasons. I think firstly the people are discovering because the ANC has spoken 6 times and all of us have spoken. I didn't know that SAFM has professional representation. No, but on a serious note, I think 3 points that will be made which are crucial. One, the one made by Mr. Natisha. So the ANC has a tendency of appropriating everything except the land and the wealth. The Freedom Charter is not an ANC document. The ANC, actually, the 60th anniversary of the Freedom Charter for the ANC is next year. The ANC only adopted the Freedom Charter in 1956. It took a whole year, but now they may want us to believe this 60th anniversary that was celebrating today is for the people of South Africa. And the fact that the ANC took a whole year looking and pondering over the Freedom Charter before they adopted it, that's forgotten. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that I agree with the SG. The first clause about the people shall govern has been, as Mr. Kwama said, procedurally attained. There's no doubt about that. And it's important. Can't underestimate the importance of the vote. But you cannot look at the Freedom Charter. The Freedom Charter is like myself here. I'm not the head or my hands or my shoes or my knees. You must look at the whole animal. Okay, so you can't achieve the Freedom Charter without distributing the wealth, which is what the Freedom Charter says. You cannot achieve the Freedom Charter without transferring the mineral wealth into the people. You cannot achieve the Freedom Charter without there being work and security. You cannot achieve the Freedom Charter without the doors of learning and culture being open. When all of those things are achieved, then South Africa will move. So you can't do this piecemeal thing. The third thing is this. The ideological orientation of the state as we are standing now is towards the right. So you will never achieve the Freedom Charter. It's like saying, Sakina, if I'm here in Joburg and I want to go to Polokwane, but my car is facing into Bloemfontein, it doesn't matter how fast I can drive, I will never reach Polokwane. This is what is happening. The state, even if they did have the banks, if those banks were in the hands of a capitalist neoliberal state such as the one we have, then you'll never achieve the aspiration. The Freedom Charter says, for example, all shall have the right to occupy land wherever they choose. All shall have the right to occupy land wherever they choose. As we're speaking now, if I go and occupy land wherever I choose, I'll be arrested. It's outlawed. That's against the fabric of the Freedom Charter. So you cannot achieve the Freedom Charter and then contradict it in the most fundamental ways. That is the thing. What we're saying is that the Freedom Charter is not even sufficient, by the way, for us who are a socialist organization. But we're saying it's a minimum document. It's a document of minimum demands. Now, if you have not achieved even the minimum demands, then where are we in 21 years? And then we're told, no, it doesn't happen overnight. I mean, that, I'm sorry, it's just excuses and excuses by a government that is taking us in the wrong direction. Go outside here and click down now, when you finish here, and ask these people here living in these shacks whether the Freedom Charter has been realized, whether they're living in comfort. That is why Tulima Dotsela called her report Secure in Comfort. It was mocking the fact that the Freedom Charter says there shall be security and comfort, and the only comfort we have now is one person in Ghana.
Listen, I don't think. I'm coming, Mr. Matisha. Coming to you now.
Earlier on you made a comment about collective responsibility. And yes, indeed, we as citizens of this country have a collective responsibility to embrace the spirit of the Constitution, to embrace the spirit of the Freedom Charter. But for us, that's where it stops, because the president of this country, speaking in Parliament as the head of the executive and as the leader there, said, democracy means the majority has more rights than the minority. And if that's the kind of attitude you get from the president of the country, why must then the minority parties take responsibility for the inaction of the majority party? Because the ANC they take selective credit. When things go right, it's the ANC government. When things go wrong, it's the national commissioner, or it's somebody else or somebody else. Now, we've got to change that. We've got to change that attitude to ensure that all of us buy into certain fundamentals to take the country forward. And I think the closest we have got in the last 10 or 15 years is the NDP. That's about the closest we've got when people got together, but that document itself has not been accepted by an alliance partner, the ANC. So we need something more. We need people to come together and say, let us now relook at the Freedom Charter, let's see what we can implement, what needs to be implemented, and move forward from there.
Mr. Kwamba?
Well, thank you very much. The issue here is that it did this is about I think we must make that very clear. We are here discussing that kind of change. From the African National Congress, that's appropriating it for private use. The second issue is that the issue that the SG of the ANC talked about, the impacts that have been promulgated during a number of issues. We have a serious challenge with what's happening when we try to substitute private capital with state official work, and we call that empowerment. Because then what then happens is that we have producers, women, and kind of people that become overnight and it sort of complements the black economic empowerment when a few black people become rich and they call themselves millionaires or any more than the economy. That is a problem. And because they are rich because of the close proximity that the African National Congress. But I want to go back to the other issue that the SG raised earlier, where we talked about the former Transkei area and so on and so forth. But those people are sitting there. He makes it truly like a century. It's a problem because they don't have to do it. Even when business is fighting, that's what they give an example of the US. When people want to invest in those areas, they have also complex application processes within the
communally. And now they end up going to areas such as Jeffrey Bay, most of other areas where they are private farms, where you find that the previously advantaged continue to derive maximum benefit of the habits. They shun areas that are previously disadvantaged because of their habits. Now, people are sitting there, they are not empowered, they can't use the properties that they have. They can't even use them for collateral because they don't belong to them. And we call that empowerment. And if you look at land restitution, let's put it in cause of it start world doing what? We saw we had back from ourselves. What have we done? We performed poorly on that score as well. If you listen to the minister of World Development Land before, he said that remember the land claim processes to be over and now closing it into sometime in 2019. And they estimated that by the end there will be about 400,000 applications. And if you look at it, they estimated the amount that we're going to need maybe to settle those applications, about 180 billion plans. And yet it's about only 2 billion plans. Aren't we having our people's expectations in place also for we know that we won't be able to meet that? The second issue, if you look at it, you consider that you have about 28,000 outstanding land claims that we have to decide where we're going to get the money to attend to the new land claims. So it's a problem in general. We keep on begging and pleading people to slow down. I'm not saying we must expropriate it without compensation, but it would actually arrive at a reasonable value of the land. Why must we not negotiate until it comes out at home and so on? And if you have people to know what's the work that comes back to South Africa.
Mr. William Adisha?
ANC has failed. And although one cannot go into each and every point, I'll just mention a few. One of the points in the Freedom Charter says that everyone shall be equal before the law. Okay? But that is not the case here. Look at the president of South Africa today. He does not do that. He never appears. He does everything to make sure that he does not go to court, etc. I mean, even Nelson Mandela himself did go to court when there were problems. When he was getting a divorce from Winnie Mandela, when he was faced with a problem with Jewel 8, he did go to court. He said, "Hey, I may be a president, but I'm going to court." But then the present president, he will avoid that. That's exactly what we are seeing. The other thing that we are seeing in South Africa is this one of jobs. The Freedom Charter says that we must go and make sure that we have jobs, etc., etc. Is ANC succeeding? No, they're not succeeding. Instead, there's a great deal of corruption, and instead, what we are having is that the majority of the people of South Africa are not having jobs. Like I'm saying, about 40% of the people of the country are not working, and those who are work in restaurants, etc., and are getting only tips. They are not getting any salaries altogether. Another point, for example, it talks about learning, it talks about education. What is happening? In South Africa today, when, let me say, the general secretary of the ANC went to school for Secretary General.
I know what you're
when you went to school, and for example, the pass rate, what was it? Okay. When you went to school, what was the percentage? Okay, just 50%. What is it today? 33%. Why? Because government is failing. The Department of Education is not training teachers. The Department of Education is not availing resources to make sure that our people are able to go on and do that which they are supposed to do and pass. The issue of land that has been raised on a number of occasions. It will never succeed because, yes, you can go out, Sakina, and say, now land we give to people and so on and so on. That will not be possible. You need resources. Give them pieces of land, but give them resources as well, so that they then can be able to go on and make sure that they develop. But ANC has failed to do that. Instead, and it has been proven on very many occasions that instead what ANC is doing is the greatest level of corruption. Hence, we've even mentioned it in Parliament, where there are some of the leaders who will take some money, put that in their pockets, instead of making sure that the ordinary people of our country are able to go forward. So ANC is a failure. It has failed. It has failed the Freedom Charter. We're not getting anywhere altogether.
So equality. Everybody shall be equal. So let's go to Mr. Simon.
So, I think one of the things that we need to establish here is the order. I think the Freedom Charter, the Freedom Charter and the NDP are two different, are very two different documents or set of ideologies. But the ANC would like us to believe otherwise. I mean, if you look at the NDP, for instance, talks to and advocates policies and programs that are market driven, which is what South Africa really needs right now. But someone raised the point that because of its alliance partners, we are not in a position to really implement what the NDP requires us to do, and we are being held to ransom. And it's unfortunate that at this point in time, Ivan Jim is not here, because the question that I've always asked him whenever we debate is, what are the unions doing to ensure that we grow the economy, that we are actually able to employ more people instead of being the job that we are living here in South Africa. One of the other things that is fundamental is that unless you are able to grow the economy at a rate that is able to take care of all these other things, all the social programs that we're involved in are actually going to blow in our face in the long run. You're talking about people getting more and more grants, and the ANC likes to celebrate it. The ANC likes to celebrate the fact that they are giving away things. They're not celebrating the fact that they're getting people out of the poverty cycle and into mainstream economy, which is something that we need to be talking to. We don't need to be talking about giving our sisters grants. We need to be getting our sisters to employ a home and to make sure that there is employers out there, or they're able to start businesses. That's what we need to be talking to. The issue of land, again, I've raised this question with the SG. What are we doing low-hanging fruits? What are we doing to give people title deeds? That is something that has been, in the government's program for a very, very long time. But they only dish out a few title deeds when it's election time, so that they continue to lure voters. And immediately after elections, they keep quiet. I can give you examples. Tony, just before elections, gave away 168 pieces of land to a particular church. They gave away pieces of land all over 2 churches. They give title deeds to a few RDP owners, and then afterwards the program stopped. And the question is, why are we not doing that? Because people can use this as collateral. They can go to a bank and say, I have a piece of land, I have this property that I can, borrow against, so that I can better my life, or I can at least take my child to school. That is not happening. We need to be asking those questions.
All right, let's go to the floor now. I'll take some questions from the audience here at the Soweto Hotel and Conference Center. We'll give you an opportunity to respond in incorporating these questions as well. Not now, SG, just now. Just now.
I thought you had finished.
I'm going to the floor now. Please identify yourself and ask your question.
Yes, my name is Vincent Shirinda. I'm from the Democratic Alliance. So my question is directed to Mr. Berry Makash. How does the ANC reconcile the Freedom Charter, How does the ANC reconcile the Freedom Charter, which has a socialist orientation, with the NDP, which has more liberal policy proposals? Thank you.
Thank you. And another question?
My name is Norman Mampani, the acting spokesperson at COSATU. We are using the Freedom Charter platforms to appreciate and thank the grandparents of workers who understood during those dark days that they must organize, otherwise they will starve. We are not going to be asking questions, but what we are appreciating is that we are aware that a lot of work has been done. The minimum wage workshops are underway. But our question is directed to the EFF. What do they think they will achieve howling in Parliament? Why can't we respect our constitutional right for freedom of association and speech and engage, not how we must ensure that we tackle precarious conditions at the workplace. Workers in garages, in the auto sector, in the farms, they need minimum wages. We have not heard anything from COPE assisting on how to tackle the precarious working conditions. No. These things, they must be somehow be stopped.
So the howling belongs to EFF, the howling belongs to the We'll get you to respond. Mr. Craven, Patrick Craven, good morning.
Patrick Craven, former national spokesperson for SAFM. Surely the one statistic which we should all be focusing on is that South Africa is now the most unequal society in the world. How far could you get from the ideals of the Freedom Charter which we're talking about today? And it's not just inequality. Unemployment is around the 10th highest in the world. More than half South Africans live in poverty. And this, to my mind, indicates that not just we haven't achieved the Freedom Charter, we're actually getting further away from it.
Yeah.
And well, the main reason is we've tied ourselves, including, unfortunately, the ANC government, to an economic system which guarantees that inequality will get worse, to free market capitalism, which is enshrined in the National Development Party. I'm not at all surprised that the DA should be the most enthusiastic supporter of the NDP, because it formalizes our commitment to a system which is inherently unequal, unfair, and contradicts everything in the Freedom Charter. But the question we have to ask is, why has the ANC, and for that matter all these other parties, lined up behind this national development plan without asking what is the consequence of adopting a policy which is based on free market capitalism, get rich quick, and compounded, of course, by all the levels of corruption, which is inherent in a capitalist system, which encourages the idea that everybody should look after themselves first, and to hell with everybody else.
Thank you so much, Patrick Craven. We have to take a spot break, so, hold those thoughts. You will respond at some point, but right now, we've got to take a spot break.
Ponieważ ile jest fuel consumption with high power outputs. Now available across the internet
Thank you very much.
Mr. Olimadisha is out of his seat. All of these sit back and right back here to our special broadcast of the Freedom Charter. And they're from Denelton. Good morning.
How are you?
Well, thanks to you, Zed.
Yeah, good morning also to your party. I'm not so sure I'm not sure if all parents will understand why they should talk to the celebrity of the Freedom Charter. I'm just trying to mention this, especially to David and Martisha. I think we have to talk to the significance of the Freedom Charter. And stop relating from Charter to the particular component, which is the African National Congress. And the correctly said by the Freedom Charter belongs to the African National. I'm just warning them. Because they need to be in the nation. This is what is called what is called a mentality of opposing. Now it's not a part of opposing. To take the significance of the Freedom Charter to the South African. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Zeb. And just looking at the time, let me just read a few messages rather before we go to the news. This one says, you can't eradicate 300 years of oppression in 21 years. And that's because you need to start with the empowerment of politicians and their families first. And that takes a long time. That's from KP. Daniel says, the problem is our constitution. South Africa is a mess because of Mandela and the people who went to Codesa. That's from Daniel. And then this one says, Mr. Sisulu, yes, you can't redress in 21 years, but the ANC has been able to spend billions in corruption in the same time. And then another one here says, SK opposition parties are in parliament to ensure that the elements of the Freedom Charter are realized instead of making noise and causing chaos and confusing electorates. And that's from Mamba in Nuitrika. Mr. Matisha must not insult our intelligence and create jobs, but Toy and like-minded Matisha must destroy them. He killed education through stupid SATU activities. He's now in parliament, bitter and an obstacle to parliamentary initiatives. That's from Managing Joburg. And then just the final one before we go to the news. It says, COPE tried to hijack the Freedom Charter by calling themselves Congress of the People. The people correctly rejected them, and that's why they only have 3 MPs in parliament. Election after election, the people confirmed the ANC as the legitimate voice of the people. That's Cedric NPE. With that, we're going to news. When we come back, short, sharp, crisp answers so we can go back to the floor and back to our callers on the line. SG, after the news. Sikona Miso standing by. So we'll give each of you an opportunity, but let's keep it short so we can move along. Yes, you can respond to that.
Oh, it's going to be good, and I'm serious. Everything backlog you will need to heavy pressure into north the gateway into south, even more level, that's all backed up coming through from the gateway this morning. And Cape Town's M5 remains a problem. There's some road work which is trying to get off at the Wakeford Road and the stationary bit right there, the Blackwood Parkway maintenance. So the M5 this morning slightly from the Kenilworth Ottery area all the way through to the N1 inbound. Still very slow from R300 down towards the Durban area. Entry looks good. We're moving on time. Just coming out the E1 straight to the central Cape Town. Rockburn, NFI.
The forum is 8 and SAFM.
Back to the forum at 8, talking about the Freedom Charter this morning, and here's your opportunity, Mr. Gwede.
Yes, let me give a few issues, very short. One, the Freedom Charter doesn't belong to the ANC.
Thank you.
We accept that everybody is celebrating the Freedom Charter. But the reality Like everybody results from the Muslim practices, that the ANC is one of the parties that was physically being gripped down in the ANC.
That was the real
ANC. That is the reality. That is the reality. That the ANC was there. Yes, and with everybody else. So everybody else was not there. They were not even conceived in the party. So they claim something they cannot claim. But it's fine. It is as part of the people, they must celebrate the Freedom Charter and not try to appropriate it from the ANC. Number two, this question of black people when they are rich is because of the community of the ANC. It's an insult to black entrepreneurs. It means there are no black entrepreneurs in South Africa. They can only be rich because of the proximity, and every black person, if he's wealthy, he must be suspected of being a thief. That is racist. Yes, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Many of them got rich because of the government tenders.
It's fine. It doesn't matter. Give me time to respond.
We want to finish here and move on.
All I'm saying is that it is an insult to black South Africans to say any black South African who is rich is a thief. That is an insult. Yes, that is an insult.
We didn't make it like this.
I'll come to you, Mr. Kwanga.
I'm waiting.
Continue, Mr. Rwanda.
When they are finished.
No, they are not. Continue.
Okay. Wonderful. And I think we should protect our people from this insult and racist insult. Number three, people must follow policies. Learn redistribution, both with programs like recapitalization and error. There may be issues in terms of whether efficient or not, but in those programs, new farmers get recapitalized and get application and tractors and seeds as it is required by the Freedom Charter. The last point is South Africa being the most unequal, and that inequality being de-racialized today. The reality of the matter is, we should be, you see, for example, the three issues, the inequality, the poverty, and that is unemployment. Many of the people and learned scholars are beginning to live to remove the poverty part. And therefore, there is inequality and unemployment, precisely because social grants have reduced poverty by 9% in Kenya. And therefore, this thing of shouting the social grants because we're in the comfort of being MPs and MPs is an issue that we should actually deal with.
Well, I think the bottom line is that the ANC is sold out on the Freedom Charter. And as I say, the ideals in the Freedom Charter are unachievable under the ANC, the current ANC. The ANC that she was talking about was the real ANC, which represented the people, not today's ANC, which is the ANC of Uganda. The ANC where Andrew Gwede here says you must disobey the court orders. Why the ANC which says that you must not judges are counter-revolutionaries. So Andrew Gwede must just distinguish between. He told me offline that he was only 5 days when the Freedom Charter was adopted.
It's only me that's where I like.
So he mustn't come here and lecture us. The question is that, as Patrick Craven said, the most consistent word in the Freedom Charter is equality. There shall be equal this, equal that, and that address the questions of racial and economic inequality, because those are two sides of the same coin. You can never resolve the issues of racial inequality because inequality in South Africa was always defined in racial terms. So if you do not address it, you don't restore the land. Remember what caused that historical inequality, where the colonial wars and the taking away of the land and the migrant labor and all those things. Now, if you don't reverse those things, to talk about equality and achieving the Freedom Charter is laughable. The ANC is incapable, having adopted neoliberal policies, of achieving the Freedom Charter. And one of the callers said we are opposing. We're not opposing. we asked, all we're doing, we were answering your question, which was whether the Freedom Charter has been realized. And the answer is a mighty big no. And you can ask any South African, whether you believe the opposition parties.
I have to at this point, I'll come back to you, give you an opportunity, but I have to take these callers who've been holding on for quite some time. They're coming from Centurion, good morning.
Hi, Khadija, and hi to the panel.
Welcome.
I just want to say that if the people of South Africa liberate themselves, even people like our parents at school, we continue to try to go for that. So sometimes if I find, I don't know, statements like the one that everything is better people. I don't know whether it's looking at media or helping other students, and even people that were not, they don't really happy. That were all in the problem. But I've noticed that most statements like those are actually people that are holding high government positions. I don't know whether it's because we think people can't go into something or this delivery. And we don't know. Because I thought it was
Okay, thanks, Dekani. Polani and Tata, good morning.
Hi. I think it's not about whether the ANC is doing right or not. It's about us looking at the South African Constitution as well as the Freedom Charter. Are there any correlations? Because if you look at the South African Constitution, it has a constitution that has been recorded as the best constitution in the world because everybody is protected. So when you talk about the land being handed over, once the landowners also have a right to keep the land by virtue of the constitution, then there is differences between the two. So if you are wanting to sort that out, it's about the South Africans revisiting the constitution of the country and whether we want the land to be redistributed and how that should be done. Those are the things that we need to look at. The Freedom Charter was the best thing that has ever happened in the South African environment. We need to give credit to the leadership at the time. But the challenge now is that when you use the wrong to do the right, you get what you are getting today.
Okay, thanks, Polani and Tata. Rex in Germany. Hello, Rex. Rex not there. Let's go to the floor here now. Mrs. Eleanor Sisulu, good morning.
Thank you. Well, firstly, I just want to say congratulations for this debate because I think people take it for granted. But on this continent, it's very rare to have a debate of all parties like this in this kind of atmosphere. So I think people mustn't take this for granted. It's an achievement of South Africans. The Freedom Charter was a visionary document, which was actually brought about through the actions of a visionary leadership. So I just want to ask the leadership, and it's a challenge, how visionary are you as leadership? How visionary? One of the things that's coming across is the issue of different ideological orientations. But whatever our ideological orientation, we're all agreed here on one thing, that we need to have equal opportunities in education. And the inequality that Comrade Craven spoke about, that is being referred to, it's reproduced in the education system. So in this Youth Month, I am asking us, let us relook at the education system. And let us look at the voices of the parents and the teachers and the organizations who are crying out to say, address this. This is the most urgent and burning thing today. We will reproduce, and whatever your ideological system, whether you be socialist or capitalist or whatever, you will not achieve for the future generations if you don't address this issue of education. And Mr. Madisha, your comrades in SATU, let us have a conversation about SATU and its actions and the role of SATU in the education. People are scared to do this, and populist leadership doesn't want to address this. But this is an issue we need to address. Thank you.
Thank you. And perhaps just a quick reminder of what the Freedom Charter actually says about education. Education shall be free, compulsory, universal, and equal for all children. Higher education and technical training shall be open to all by means of state allowances and scholarships awarded on the basis of merit. and adult illiteracy shall be ended by a mass state education plan, and teachers shall have the rights of other citizens. That's what the Freedom Charter says about education. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Nota Zamakuba from the Inkatha Freedom Party. 60 years after the adoption of the Freedom Charter and 21 years of democratic governance, we welcome the efforts of our country's strides in fulfilling the aspirations of the previously oppressed as articulated in the Freedom Charter. But I would like to find out from the panel. Today we are here in the Clifton Square of dedication to the Freedom Charter. But the irony is that just across the road, the people of Clifton have lived in the same condition as they were 20 years ago. What is the message? They are going to be here today celebrating, and they'll be going back to the same inhuman conditions that they have been living in for the past 20 years.
Thank you so much for that question.
Good morning. My name is Anne. I'm from the Democratic Alliances. I just want to ask the history. If you look at now, I was part and parcel to write an oral history of the Freedom Charter. And I will start with this. Clifton is a place from neglect to respect, but it's still neglect. Our educational system. More matriculants doesn't get job. Secondly, they finish with school and there's nothing for them to do. But we look today, what can the Freedom Charter do for our matriculants outside there? Because we've got a serious problem. And as a lady before me said, you know, I sit there and I paint for this beautiful monument here, but there's nothing in Clifton. It's still neglect. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anne.
My name is Tando Bezano, 29 years of age, born and raised in Clifton. I've been living in Clifton for the rest of 29 years. That means I've been living in the shed for 29 years. With that said, I'm just saying what we've realized is that when you're not on the leadership, it's easy to point fingers. But once you start leading, that's when you get to realize how hot is the seat. So with that, we're not. I'm speaking on behalf of the young people in Clifton. Is that there's quite a lot of opportunities that we've realized that are available out there for young people coming from places like ours, as we are put as priority. But what has been quite a problem is how the information gets to the people. So how are we all working as political parties to make sure that such information as to upgrade our communities through education and opportunities for young people, how do we convey that message really, because if you rely on what you think is easy, internet and stuff like that, we're not exposed to such. But we know that when you campaign for your votes, you are able to reach us. So how do you get to come to us and show us opportunities that are out there? We are not lazy. We're willing to upgrade ourselves.
Thank you so much. Very poignant point saying that when you are looking for votes, you know where the people are. And I guess that speaks to everybody. Oh, Clive, you know about
Top of the morning to you, everyone. What an absolute fantastic platform. I just want to say that we must remember what we've had in the last 21 years. In actual fact, what we should be celebrating. I reckon that we should be celebrating for these few things. We survived the biggest economic downturn the world has ever seen. South Africa came out there and we came back and we were still strong. We need to remember that the platforms that we've been available to us, and I agree with my brother very well, those platforms are available. We do have sets of education authorities that are available and that actually help young people to actually advance their skills, to get them to the community so that they can actually advance their skills. So the question is, for me personally, is economically we are stretched. The GSE is hitting record highs, yet our economy is not growing at the same pace. So what we need to ask is, what is it that these private companies are doing to coin in the money which is not feeding down to the economy? In actual fact, last year alone, these companies were able to transfer close to about $28 billion outside of South Africa. So that means that this money is not staying locally. So how do we make sure that these guys actually keep spending the money locally? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kai. Let me start here with Naran Singh.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Sister Sulu made some very telling points about being visionary.
And moving forward, we need some broad consensus, not on the basis of what the SG says, 62%, 1%, half a percent, and things like that. We must take away the politics out of this and come together as people of this country, civil society, and talk about what's good for the future, 2015 onwards. We talk about equal rights and opportunities. But SG, is this not being compromised by cadre deployment, entrepreneurship, corruption, affirmative action, protests? I mean, this is not allowing us to achieve the ideals of the Freedom Charter. And we believe that to honor the spirit of the Freedom Charter, we need to free our society, our independent institutions. I emphasize independent institutions, Chapter 9 institutions, and here you know who I'm referring to, a person you don't like. We need to free our government and industry from political manipulation. And if we can do that, we can move forward. Chapter 9 institutions need to be respected. We need to respect each other if we want to move forward in something that the people of 2075 will say, yes, these leaders that sat around this table did something concrete. They implemented the charter, which improved our lives.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Before I come to Mr. Papa, what's the problem?
I think Mr. Singh is very opportunistic. No, he is opportunistic. Because let's be the policy that is criticizing or implemented and criticizing. In terms of the statistics of the Labour Department, that policy has achieved its objective in respect of two generations, white women and Indians. It has not achieved it for Ghana and Africa. So it's a correct policy, and it must be quantified. It must be quantified and not be stopped when one designated group achieves its objective.
We should have a debate on that.
And we'll have that debate on another day. Mr. Papa. Yes, for now.
What I agree with that, what is that? There's a lot of focus that is being made in terms of language. You mustn't keep the depression that nothing will happen. It will be very normal. Remember, as leaders, might also do that before. But this, I think the challenge here, why we're actually proposing it's simply because, when it comes to political equality, they're not judged in terms of the amount or the degree of participation. But you look at them in terms of the level of accumulated evidence. And I think now when you look at the interaction between your politics, your developmental objectives, and the economy, what the Freedom Charter says, there are a lot of contradictions. Now, if we would amend some of the clauses which are here, these calculations, consider each other. The problem we're going to have is that we're going to continue having politicians that use some of those clauses, the clause to score points and to also try and focus.
Okay.
That also happens across the board when it comes to political parties. It's not just one thing.
Absolutely.
But the other issue I want to say is that in the implementation of the basic charter, we're not going to succeed if we're not able to catch the excesses of society.
Thank you, Mr. Kwakwa. I have to take a spot break, but let me take Uli Madisha before we go there.
Let me start with I know you deal with the 5 and 6. Let me take you back to the time, it was 2008, I think, when the former president, Becky, was still president. The expenditure then came to about 640 billion. Okay? Now, at the moment, the expenditure, and we don't have that money, is 1.8 trillion rand. So we owe a lot of money. Are we going to be able to get that? No. You understand, as the person that deals with the finances, that more and more has got to be paid. By who? By the ordinary people of our country who got to pay, taxes. And as long as it stays there at 1.8 trillion, what happens? Each and every day it goes up, and each and every day we will be owing. Now, these are the kind of problems which are there. So we have the government that fails the people today. and something is what should be done. They will never succeed.
Okay, we're going to go to a spot break. When we come back, I'll hear from Mr. Msmanga and Mr. Sisulu, and then, of course, we'll have to wrap it up very briefly.
When it comes to resolving tax complaints, fairness is all you can ask for. The Office of the Tax Ombudsman is sure to address any service, procedure, or administrative complaints you may have on your site. However, the Tax Ombudsman will only receive a request once you have approached service, unless there's compelling circumstances for not doing so. Any information disclosure of new information is found by law. Simply call all in 1116
So you read that 30 seconds to give us the closing remarks.
Nothing which is being used that is accurate, common, square, and programming that is not harmful, does not amount to hate speech or violence or explicit sex. If you think about the vernacular code, then you can inform the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa and direct any complaints in writing to the BCCSA, PO Box 412-365, Craig Hall 2024. That's the BCCSA, PO Box 412-365, Craig Hall 2024. Send a fax to 011-326 3198 or email to bccsa@kaabsa.ca. For more information, please visit bccsa.co.za. Want to find out how to grow or start a manufacturing business? Don't need to manufacturing area conference and exhibition on 29 and 30 June and Grow People's City of Ecuador. Register now. Manufacturing area 0 you feature, sleep, and dream of future. Welcome to home and your children using so you saw expertise, direction, someone to spur you on, someone to take you to the next level. For some, yes, the forum again on SAFM.
Well, unfortunately, fast running out of time here this morning, and I want to start wrapping it up. So everybody will have, at least 30 seconds to give us their final shot. But I want to reflect on the question about visionary leadership, and I think that speaks to everybody here. So if you could perhaps also incorporate that in your responses. Mr. Smart?
Right. Thank you very much, Clive. You raised an issue about investors disinvesting in South Africa. As a business person, you would not want to invest where there's uncertainty. I think that is one of the key issues that we need to start addressing. Where if ever a president goes to Davos, as an example, says one thing to the business people and come back and says and does something different in their country, then you're going to have a situation where people are then analyzing what is being said and what is being done, and you're going to have people saying, I don't have confidence in this country going forward, therefore I'm going to need to take my money out. And this is basically what is going to happen. So we need to have policies that we can stick to, and then to make sure that going forward, those policies talk to the investors and can, eliminate their fears. I think that is one of the things that we need to be talking about. SG, I think one of the things that you need to agree to here is that social grants are not sustainable. Social grants are not sustainable, and we have more and more people going into this pool, and we need to get people out, and we are not getting people out, and this is the problem that we are going to face in the near future. Lastly,
thank you, Mr. Chimanga. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Mr. Sisulu?
Thank you very much. Let me start by saying to Mr. Chimanga that you can't amend the Freedom Charter because what we need to do is implement the Freedom Charter. And politically, as a country, we've done a lot to achieve a lot politically. What needs to happen now is to do what we need to do, that is to grow the economy. Because the economy is central to everything we do. It's where the hopes and aspirations of our people are either going to be met or yes, are going to be met in the economy nowhere else. Therefore, we need to find ways to bring the economy and grow it very, very fast. Without the opportunities and democracies open those opportunities to grow the economy.
I agree with totally with what Mr. Sulu is saying. Freedom Charter, we've got to ensure that it is implemented, and therefore look at what is happening in the country today. Ensure that the government is the government that is able to take the country forward on the basis, of course, of all those issues, the Freedom Charter. Look, for example, at the example that is given that I want to emphasize, that here is a government that is wasting a lot of money. And there's a secret to that. You can't have proper education, land, and anything for the people of our country. It is a failure.
But what is important is that we need to be so that we can together what is authorities. That's why achieving what our focus is trying to achieve in the short and so that is
Yes, we recognize and applaud the visionaries in 1955. There was clarity of purpose in what they wanted. They wanted to defeat apartheid, and the people spoke, and apartheid was defeated in 1994. But it's 2015 now. Let's move forward. Let's look back. Let's learn and take into account current circumstances, defeating poverty, inequality, and unemployment.
Well, the question is, are we where we were in 1955? Obviously not. Have there been some achievements? Obviously, yes. Have we achieved the ideals in the Freedom Charter? No. Are we capable of achieving the ideals in the Freedom Charter under the current regime of the ANC? That's a big, big no.
And Mr. Makashi.
Let's celebrate the Freedom Charter, the people of South Africa. Let's work hard for its implementation. And let's stop talking ourselves down in our country. Because the biggest enemy of us in South Africa is ourselves. Because we talk negative about our country. Let's change that.
Well, that's where we have to leave it, unfortunately. Thank you so much to our panel this morning and everybody else who participated. Happy Charter Day to everybody in South Africa. It's 9 o'clock and time to use something for lunch.
If you put it on Iono, you don't have to download it. You just need the code.